Hello fishing friends, this is Matthew with Outfishing 13 bringing you another reel service video for Zebco reels. Today I got something pretty special. I have the Zebco Bullet. Now this is the top of the line Zebco reel. It's the high speed, all metal gears, aluminum body, really nice, their best handles. I mean, this is the top of the line reel. It has ball bearing pickup pins, has ball bearings in the handle. It's a 9 bearing system, so it's super nice. I love this reel. It's really great. I bought this used. It hasn't been serviced for a while, so I'm going to show you how to take it apart and completely service and clean this reel. Let's get started. Okay, if you've seen any of my other reel service videos, you know that you're just going to need a few simple tools and supplies to service your Zebco reel. You're going to need some grease. I've got some grease in little tubs. You can use just about any good quality grease. You're going to need some reel oil. You're going to need a small screwdriver, a large screwdriver, and for these reels you need a small thin Phillips screwdriver. Okay, you're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. Okay, you'll need some cleaning supplies. One of my favorite things to clean out old gunk is WD-40. You could use a thing of canned air to blow parts out with. A lot of good, just basic soap and water does wonders for these reels. I would be very careful about using any sort of solvents on these reels, as the solvents may dissolve any plastic parts like a button or something in there. It could ruin it. Okay, so let's get started on this reel. And then let me take this off. When you take this off, push the button to cock it so that the pickup pins are out of your way. To get started, we need to take off the spinner head. I'm just going to inspect this as I go. So the inside there is pretty clean. It just needs a little bit of washing out. The spinner head, hold the handle, turn the spinner head to the left, and it should just pop and come off here. Well, that's pretty dirty. We need to make sure that it gets cleaned up nicely. This spinner head right here costs more than most Zebco reels. If you have to replace it, it's right around $35. So take good care of this. Make sure that this gets cleaned out well. The thing that's the worst on these is those little white right here. These little white cams right here. If they wear down, then the pin doesn't stick out as far as it should, and then you end up having to replace those, or to replace the whole head. Okay, next we need to take off this piece right here. This is kind of grungy. To take this off, you want to take and set the drag all the way. And then it has instructions here to remove. You turn the handle this way and pull it off. To put it back on, it's just the opposite, like that. Okay, that's pretty grungy. We need to make sure that gets clean. Now that we have that off, we can see this is pretty grungy. We need to clean that up and get that all cleaned up. We need to take off the back. To do that, there is 2 holes right here, and down in there are 2 screws. Okay, these ones are. Okay, now there's a gear down here, and you want to take and if you turn it loose all the way, that gear will get out of the way. But if you have it turned like that, that gear will be in your way. So take and turn it all the way loose, and then the gear's out of your way, and you can get down there and get the second screw. Okay, there we go. All right. That's kind of grungy. We can get that. Now this has gotten worn out right there. from a lot of use. But the good thing is you can replace this. And I've got a new part coming to replace this. But for now, we're just going to clean it up. Okay, now that we have that off, we can remove this little piece right there. Your little drag wheel. Now this has got a little clicker right here, and it's removed by a screw. I'm not going to remove that. Those are kind of a pain. I'm going to probably put just a little drop of oil on that. Okay, the next thing that we can do is take the handle off. Well, I have two choices. I can take the handle off and start taking the middle apart, or I could take this piece off right here. I think I'll take this little piece off right here. So there's a screw right here, a small screw for the spool oscillator. This screw doesn't come off really easy because it has thread lock on it. So just carefully remove it. Okay, there it is. Okay, now that we have that screw out, there's a pin there that seats on, so we're going to need to take the handle off. Just need to take out this cap right here. Okay. And undo this screw right here. Okay. Down in here is a retainer that screws out. If you had the little tool to do it, it'd make it really easy, but you can use a screwdriver to screw it out. And that holds in the bearing. And there's not one on this side, so we can remove these ball bearings. One right here and one right there. So these bearings, they come out a lot like an Omega. So there's a bunch of threads here. Keep working. And if it's really tight, work a screwdriver in here this way. It may have been just because it was really dirty, but there's one. Okay, make sure you don't lose that little shim washer right there. We finally got the bearings out. Now let's take this out. So the trick here is this has got a little, you kind of got to get to work this out. This has got a little pin right here. So you just kind of got to work this out. There we go. This. So we got the oscillators right here. Okay. Okay, now we can take this front piece out here. Now here's the thing about these. This cannot be serviced by taking it apart. I wish it could be, but it's all riveted together. I wish that Zebco would have made this with screws to take it apart. But we're going to clean this up as best as we can and see if I can get some oil and grease in there and just clean it up as best as I can. Because it's still in good shape. It's just kind of dirty. Okay, we got 2 little screws down there to take the middle. Okay, then this piece will come out. And then we have a little retaining clip right here. Put your thumb over it. Just take it out so it doesn't just spring right out on you. Take out one side at a time. Okay. Okay, there's that bearing. And it's just, you can see it's partly sealed on the front and then open on the back. So make sure you put it in the same way. And then here's the anti-reverse bearing. Okay, and it has 6 little roller bearings in there. You need to make sure that this part goes down where you can see that it's open there. We'll get some new grease down in there. Okay, now we have it all apart except for this little clicker right there. And I'm not going to take that out. I'm just going to wipe this all down really well and clean it out with some WD-40. So I'll get this cleaned up and then we'll put it back together. Okay, I'm going to take a minute and wash a bunch of these things off with soapy warm water and dry them off, and then we'll be ready to put everything back together. Okay, I have all my parts cleaned up. We're ready to start putting it back together. We're going to put it together in the reverse order that we took it apart. So let's start with, the first thing we're going to start with is putting back in the front here, the anti-reverse and the front bearing. So we're going to put some in here. Get some grease in there. Then we're going to just drop that in. Now, remember, it has to go in a certain way, so the blue part goes in first. And so it'll just slip in there. Okay, and this bearing, as you recall, goes in with that part going down. That part should be facing up with the shield part, okay? All we're going to do with this is we're going to add a little bit of oil to those ball bearings. Then we're going to pack a little bit of grease, not very much, around there. Okay, then we'll drop that in there. Press it in, and then we need to put this little retaining spring in there. Be careful when you put this in there, put it in one side and then hold it in with your thumb, and then work the rest of it around in there. It gets to snap down in there all the way, it should. And we're going to put a little bit of grease right on the front here. Okay. All right, now let's work on the back. So the next thing that goes in is this gear here. We just need to oil this up and then we're going to grease it. Well, we can grease it now. So let's put a little bit of oil here. A couple little drops. And we'll work those in. I'll put a little bit of oil right here. Work that in. Okay, now we're going to use some of our really good red and tacky Lucas grease for the gear. So it just needs a light coating all the way around. Okay. Then we'll add some oil to the bearing. Okay. And put that back in. Okay, and then we have two little screws to hold these in. Make sure those are snug. Okay. We need to take and go ahead and add some oil to let that soak in each one of those main shaft bearings. And what we want to do is we want to get those started. Okay, before we put that on, we're going to put this back together. So what we want to do, we want to have this in there so that when we put this in there, we can get this all lined up. Okay, so we want to take and put some grease on this main shaft, because this is what the oscillator is going to run back and forth on. And then I'm going to, this gear right here, I'm going to put some grease on it too. Now there's not really much we can do about greasing up the drag washers, so we're going to put some oil down in here and then some oil on this drag washer section here. And that's about all that we can do to service that. This right here is what the oscillator rides on. We're going to put a little bit of grease right there. And slide that on. Okay, we need to put this oscillator on here, and we need to add some grease to this cam right here. And we're going to grease this up a little bit where the bearings will going to mount on there. So the oscillator goes on like this. Okay, and that's all lubed up nice. Now what we need to do is get that lined up like that. Try that again. Okay, let's make sure we get this little shim washer. It goes right here. Okay, we need to make sure that's on. Okay, get oscillator hook back up. Put the bearing in there. Okay. Okay, we got that side put on. That was nice. Okay, we got that side on there. Okay, now that we have that together, let's put this bearing keeper in there. So you don't want to tighten that down too much. You want to have it so that it adjusts the gear lash just right. Okay, now we're ready to put this little screw back in there. So you just need to push that down and get it lined up. Get this little screw back in there. Okay, perfect. Okay, I like my handle on the left, so I'm going to put the handle back on. I'm going to put it on this side. That feels a little bit tight, so I'm going to take this off and reach down there and adjust this just a little bit. Okay, that feels good. Okay, now that I have the handle in, I'm going to go ahead and grease this big gear. Now, keep in mind you don't need to put a lot of grease on there because what gets slung off isn't going to lubricate it anymore. So we're going to go ahead and turn it half a turn. Brush some more grease on there. Okay. Now we're ready to put the back on. Oh, gotta put this wheel on here. Add a little tad of grease right there where it fits in there. Okay, make sure that this is loosened all the way, and then so you can drop your screws in there. Tighten those up. I'm going to add a little bit of grease right here to where the spool mounts. That way it will protect it and keep the corrosion from that spool. And then we're also going to put some grease right around in here. This is where the pickup pin cams run. Okay, so I'm going to put this spool on here with this small. So I put that on there so we can put it on there. Okay, I got this all cleaned up. We need to take and apply some grease on the inside of here. We want to oil these pins right here and oil your little bearings right here. Just a little drop of oil is all it takes. Push the button in. Drag is working great. Just gonna let that suck in there. Okay, that's working great. Okay, so there is one last thing that we can do on these reels. So these handles right here have a little tiny hole in them. All you need to do is just take and put a drop of oil down in there. And that will oil, because there's a ball bearing down on the inside of there. All cleaned up and ready to go. Alright, so we got the bullet all serviced. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel by pushing on the button right over there. And put any comments below. Let me know if you have any questions